Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking through some player props I like over on Prizepicks for the Week 11 NFL slate. Going to give you guys 4 props I like for these Sunday games. We're going to break down these 4 plays, and we're going to share why I like them. Now, before we do get started, make sure you guys hit that like button down below if you do enjoy these Prizepicks videos. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And if you guys are new to the channel, and if you don't have an account over on Prizepicks, be sure to sign up, use promo code NOAH. And when you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code and place your first lineup, you'll get $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account. So you can sign up, if you don't want to make a big deposit, just put in $10. You sign up, deposit $10, play a $5 lineup. Even if you lose that $5 lineup, Prizepicks is going to give you $50 in promo funds that you can then use to play additional lineups. Any money you win off those is credit, which is then withdrawable if you want to do that or continue to play with that money. But be sure to go check out Prizepicks, guys, and again, use that promo code NOAH when you sign up so that way you get those $50 in promo funds. And also, I do want to give a shout out to Sleeper because we do have a partnership with Sleeper as well. And for a limited time, you can get your first deposit matched up to $1,500 over on Sleeper. So if you do have a larger bankroll, if you are able to make a larger deposit, you don't have to, obviously, but if you are able to make a larger deposit and if you want to, you can get your first deposit matched up to $1,500. So if you put in $1,500, Sleeper is going to give you an additional $1,500 to play with. So now you got $3,000 to work with for your Sleeper account. You only get that if you sign up and use code NOAH. So download the Sleeper app. They have an app for the App Store. If you have an iPhone, they have an app for the Android too on the Google Play Store. They have an app for both. Download the Sleeper app. Use code NOAH when you sign up, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $1,500 for a limited time. And if you don't know what Sleeper is, they're just a DFS pick'em app, very similar to Prizepicks, where you're just picking more or less on player projections. You're building out an entry. You can make up to an 8-pick entry on Sleeper. You can win up to 100x your money. So go check them out, guys. And again, use that promo code NOAH at signup. But let's go ahead and talk through the props that I'm liking on Prizepicks this week. We got 4 plays for this Week 11 NFL slate. First prop we're going to take a look at is going to be a receptions prop. And I'm liking Demario Douglas. We're going to take Demario Douglas for more than 3.5 receptions. So Demario Douglas is a kind of a low A-dot receiver. He is not a guy that runs a bunch of deep routes. He runs a lot of quick slants, quick drag routes, just short routes over the middle of the field. And those are typically routes that are going to be easier to get receptions on. It's a lot harder to get a reception on a deep vertical shot versus a quick slant, just because, defenders, you can beat your defender right off the line. You can get separation very easily. And Douglas has been a guy that's typically been a good receiver at racking up receptions. You can look over his last few games. He's had some games where against the Texans, he had 6 receptions. Recent game against the Titans, he had seven receptions. Last week against the Bears, he had 4 receptions. As of late, he's been getting pretty consistent volume, and he's been one of the top targets in this Patriots offense. Now, the Patriots' pass game is not very good, and it was not very good with Jacoby Brissett. Since they put Drake May in as the starting quarterback, the Patriots have shown a little bit more of a willingness to throw the football. They've also been a little bit better moving the ball through the air with Drake May at quarterback versus when they were using Brissett. And, you look at Drake May's pass attempts lately, he's been throwing the ball a decent amount, 33 pass attempts against Houston, 37 against the Texans. He got injured in the game against the Jets, but also, I want to say, they didn't really throw the ball much in that game. He only had 6 pass attempts, but then 41 against Tennessee. Last week in Chicago, he had 25. And you look, the Patriots have been involved in a lot of kind of closer games lately. Like the game against the Jets was a 3-point game. The game against the Titans was a 3-point game. The game against the Bears, they won by 16. This Patriots team, I don't think is very good, and I think most weeks they're going to be playing from behind. This week, they're 4.5-point underdogs at home against the Rams. The Rams are fully healthy now. They've got Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua back. Matthew Stafford has his weapons. So I think we could definitely see this be a spot where the Rams are able to put up points and force New England to drop back and throw. And if you look at Drake May's pass attempts line for Sunday, he's got a pass attempts line sitting, I believe, 29.5. You tell me we're going to get 29, 30 pass attempts for Drake May. I think we got a pretty good chance of getting 4 receptions for Demario Douglas. Again, Douglas has been a guy that's been able to earn targets. As of late, he's been getting consistently 5 to 6 targets a game. Had 5 targets last week, 9 targets against Tennessee. Only had 3 targets against the Jets, but again, that was a game where Drake May only threw the ball 6 times, and then Brissett came in, and I want to say Brissett didn't throw the ball much that game either. Brissett threw the ball He did throw the ball 24 times, so he must have came in early in that game. But even still, we've seen Douglas have a better connection with Drake May than with Jacoby Brissett. So I understand why Douglas didn't get a bunch of receptions in that game against the Jets. It was also not the greatest matchup too. The Jets have had a pretty good pass defense. The Rams' pass defense is definitely not the greatest. I think this is a pretty good matchup overall for Douglas. And again, he's a guy that's getting good volume right now, 5 to 6 targets a game. He's had at least 6 targets, and I believe, I think 6 of their last 8 games, or 5 of their last 8 games, he's had at least 5 targets. He's had a couple games in there with only 3 targets, but lately 9, 9, 9, 5. So he's had at least 5 targets in 4 out of his last 6 games. One of those games was against the Jets, where again Drake May got hurt. The other one was against the Jaguars. He only had 3 targets in that game, but lately the targets have been solid for Demario Douglas. Again, he's a guy that runs a lot of shorter, low A-dot routes that are easily able to get receptions on those type of routes. And looking at sportsbook odds, a lot of sportsbooks are favoring the over on this receptions prop for Demario Douglas. DraftKings has it at minus 130, juiced towards the over right now. So I do like that as our first prop for Sunday. Next prop we're going to take a look at is going to be a prop on Bo Nix. And I'm liking Bo Nix for more than 16.5 fantasy score. So fantasy score is really simple, self-explanatory. If you have never played on Prizepicks before, it's the same scoring system that every fantasy football league uses, and it's full PPR, so you get a point per reception. Obviously, for a quarterback, that doesn't really matter because quarterbacks aren't going to get receptions. But Bo Nix, you look at what he's done this season, and as of late, he's gone over this fantasy score line in 3 out of his last 5 games. Just barely went under against Kansas City, had 16.1. Went under against New Orleans, had 14.06. But Bo Nix has shown a lot of upside for fantasy this year, mainly because of his ability to get fantasy points with his legs. He's been very mobile in the NFL so far. This was something that he was, in college. Bo Nix showed the ability to run, if he had to. And in the NFL, he's been running a lot. He's got 290 rush yards this year. He's had 4 rushing touchdowns. And as of late, we've seen Bo Nix, shown a willingness to run. He had 61 rush yards against the Chargers, 75 against the Saints, 36 against Baltimore. He's had a couple games like against Carolina. He only had 4 rush yards, but he still was able to get a rushing touchdown in that game. He still threw 3 touchdowns in that game. Last week against Kansas City, he had negative rush yards, which is pretty rare to happen for Bo Nix, especially with how he can move. And honestly, if he doesn't have negative rush yards, I think he probably goes over this fantasy score line. The only reason he went under this fantasy score line last week is because he had negative 0.5 rush yards. If he would have had just 0 rush yards, he would have finished with 16.6 fantasy points, but he had negative 0.5, negative 5 rush yards, which would have subtracted half a point. So that's obviously unfortunate for Bo Nix there. But again, he's shown a willingness to use his legs this year, which makes him a very valuable quarterback for fantasy. The matchup here against the Falcons, I think, is a pretty good one. You look at the Falcons this season, they are giving up the 7th most fantasy points per game to the quarterback position. And you can kind of look at Bo Nix's prop lines, just kind of, do some math yourself and figure out how many fantasy points he's projected for just based off his prop lines. He's got a 210 pass yards prop. So if he throws for 200 yards, that's 8 fantasy points. He's got a 27.5 rush yards prop. So if he runs for 27 yards, that's 2.7. So let's just give him 3 points for 30 rush yards. And then you got to factor in touchdowns. So he's projected for about 11 fantasy points just from pass yards and rush yards, and then factoring in touchdowns. He's got a 1.5 touchdowns prop. Obviously, that's a little bit juiced towards the under, but let's just say he throws 1 touchdown. That would still put him at 15 fantasy points. And then you got to think maybe he gets a rushing touchdown. Again, Bo Nix has had 4 rushing touchdowns this season. He's always a threat to run. And they can do like QB sneaks as well in near the goal line. So there's a lot of ways for Bo Nix to go over the 16.5 fantasy score line. You could look around the industry, look at industry projections, look at some other DFS sites. A lot of other DFS sites like Underdog, Sleeper, I think they have their fantasy score lines on Bo Nix set around 18. I want to say Underdog had Bo Nix's fantasy score line at 18.2 or something like that. I think Sleeper had it at 17 or 18 last time I looked. So it does feel like Prizepicks is a little bit lower than the industry here on Bo Nix's fantasy score projection. I like the matchup a lot for Bo Nix. Again, with his ability to get fantasy points with his legs, obviously get fantasy points as a passer as well. Just makes him a very valuable quarterback for fantasy. We've seen him be a very valuable quarterback for fantasy this year. He's averaging over 17 fantasy points per game. So I like that as our second prop for Sunday. Going to take Bo Nix for more than 16.5 fantasy score. And then the final two props that I like are going to be a correlated stack. So on Prizepicks, you can take correlated stacks, like you can take a quarterback over pass yards and his receiver over receiving yards. And depending on how you play it in a lineup, you won't get a payout deduction for that. Now, normally, if you do like a quarterback receiver stack with another quarterback receiver stack, you're going to get a payout deduction. But if you do one stack and then play props from different games, you can still get a normal payout. So we're going to look at a quarterback receiver stack of Patrick Mahomes for more than 243.5 pass yards, pair him with Travis Kelce for more than 67.5 receiving yards. This is a pretty self-explanatory stack here. If Mahomes throws for 244 yards, it's more than likely that Kelce's going to get 68 receiving yards. You can just look through Mahomes' game log this season when he's thrown for 244 yards or more. In most of those games, Kelce has also been able to get 68 yards. Now, their first game of the season against Baltimore, Mahomes did throw for 291, and Kelce only had 34 yards in that game. But Kelce also was not playing very well to start the season. He has looked a lot better as of late. He's looked like his old self. But then their next game against the Chargers, Mahomes threw for 245. Kelce had 89 yards in that game. Against the Saints, Mahomes threw for 331. Kelce had 70 yards. Against the Raiders, Mahomes threw for 262. Kelce had 90 yards. Against Tampa Bay, Mahomes threw for 291. Kelce had 100 yards. And then last week, Mahomes did throw for 266. Kelce only had 64 yards. But most of their games this season where Mahomes has gone over his pass yards line, Kelce has also gone over his receiving yards line. And Kelce has been earning targets at a very high clip lately. You look at their last few games, Kelce's been getting like 12 targets a game. He had 12 targets against the Raiders, 16 targets against Tampa Bay, 12 targets last week against Denver. Even with DeAndre Hopkins now in the fold, like even though they have DeAndre Hopkins now, it has still been Travis Kelce getting a lot of the volume and a lot of the targets from Patrick Mahomes. We know Mahomes loves to target Kelce, and I like this spot a lot against the Bills. I think this is a game that definitely has some sneaky shootout potential. So the Chiefs, they're 9-0 this year. They haven't lost a game yet. We've seen a couple games where they have kind of been pushed a little bit. A lot of their games this season have actually been competitive. Like, it's not like the Chiefs are blowing teams out. They're just winning. They're winning competitive games. This is definitely a spot where I think we could see them maybe get behind. They're going to be on the road. They're going to be playing in Arrowhead, not in Arrowhead, in Buffalo. So going on the road to face the Bills in Buffalo, not an easy place to play. The Bills are actually favored to win this game. They're favored by like 2.5. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to finally take their first loss of the season, but either way, I think we're probably going to see the Bills be able to put up points. They've typically been a good offense at home, been able to put up points at home. And when the Chiefs are forced to throw, when Mahomes has to drop back and throw the ball 35, 36, 37 times, you can typically bet on him getting 244 yards, and you can typically bet on Kelce getting 68 yards when Mahomes throws for 244. And you can look at Mahomes' pass attempts line this week. It's set at like 35.5, I think, or 34. And he's been soaring over that. Like, he's been getting a lot of games with closer to 40 pass attempts. The Chiefs have been throwing the ball a lot more lately. Mahomes has been dropping back a lot. On the road against the Bills, a good a team that's typically a good defensive team. This year, the Bills' defense has not been as stout. But still, I think it's a spot where we could see the Chiefs forced a little bit to air it out. I think it's a game that does have some sneaky shootout potential. And these teams, when they've played in the past, they've had a lot of games that have been high scoring. You can look at Mahomes' history against the Bills. I know, take it with a grain of salt because I don't like to look too much into past history versus teams. But when these teams have played in the past, Mahomes has typically had some big games. I mean, you look at his last just 6 games against Buffalo, 325, 272, 378, 338, 271, and 215 pass yards. And then you look at Kelce's last 5 games against the Bills, or last 6 games against the Bills, 118, 57, 96, 108, 83, 75. So these two guys have connected really well in this matchup in the past for what it's worth. I like the spot a lot for both guys. I like playing the correlation here with Mahomes going over his pass yards, pairing that with Kelce to go over his receiving yards. So these are 4 props, guys, that I like for the Week 11 NFL slate on Sunday. We're going to take Demario Douglas for more than 3.5 receptions, Bo Nix for more than 16.5 fantasy score, and then we're going to do a 2-pick correlated stack of Mahomes over pass yards with Kelce over receiving yards. You play this as a 4-pick power, it still pays out 10x. So even though we do have a correlated stack here, we're still getting a normal 10x payout. And I would definitely play this as a power play. Anytime you do correlated stacks, you want to be playing it like to go as a power play because you're basically there's basically no scenario. I mean, there are scenarios, but most of the time, if Mahomes goes over, Kelsey's going to go over. If Mahomes goes under, that probably means Kelsey's going under too. So you're just kind of playing for the correlation there. That's why I think it makes sense to do power play instead of doing a flex play. But it's honestly up to you. You can play it however you want. But I would recommend doing a power play for these 4 picks. So, yeah, guys, that's what I'm liking for the Week 11 slate. Let's make some money this week. As always, do appreciate you guys watching these Prizepicks videos and supporting the Prizepicks content. Make sure you guys hit that like button down below if you did enjoy. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And go check out Prizepicks as well. If you guys are not signed up for Prizepicks yet, use that promo code NOAH. When you do sign up and when you place your first lineup, you'll get $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account. So be sure to go check out Prizepicks if you guys have not yet. But that's all I got for tonight. Good luck on this slate. Let's make some money on this Week 11 slate, guys, and I will see you in the next video.